live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing awful, man. I'm not gonna say I feel pretty. No, I feel like shit. I went to bed at 7:30 this morning because I was working for my Yahoo shift. I had to work the entire night after watching my team lose and then get berated on Twitter for 12 straight hours. So no, Blake, I'm doing awful. This is the worst that I've ever been in the past year.
Well, all right. I know that listen, you have a normal reaction of what it is when your team loses a national title. It is quite honestly, it's probably some of the worst pain as a fan that you can have, knowing that you're right there close to the doorstep and you're unable to win that game. But I got to start off because I got absolutely tattooed by LSU fans today. During the game, you started.
You got tattooed.
Because I didn't come out here and I didn't question you on calling them dorks. In case you missed it, yesterday during the game, LSU fans were on Joe's ass. You responded by these LSU dorks, Brian Kelly this, Brian Kelly that. Here, I want to have a discussion, not the yelling that we did last night.
Okay.
But a discussion in reference to your comments saying, look, I think here's my God's honest opinion, and this is no cap. I think multiple things can be true at once, okay? Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, Brian Kelly at LSU, LSU without Brian Kelly. I think multiple layers need to be talked about here.
Sure.
But I do think that it is this rivalry that is brewing right now between LSU and Notre Dame. They got to schedule a game with one another. I mean, this has got to – because, I mean, you have two fan bases that are hostile to one another. It's got to happen. I hope it happens in the playoffs next year.
Well, yeah, I really do hope that that's the biggest thing. The playoff committee needs to be smart enough to find a way to manufacture this matchup. They have the power to do it, and if they have the capability, they need to execute on it because it would probably be one of the most watched playoff games if they were find a way to execute it.
Could you imagine if it was a national title?
National title would be bonkers. That might be a little wishful thinking that both teams would be good enough right at the same time to both get there.
Correct. But continue.
To clarify what I was saying and to kind of move along with this conversation and what you said that multiple things can be true, I tweeted that out because all I was trying to do was cover the game and tweet about the game. I have, compared to most other Notre Dame media members and Notre Dame supporters, I have talked about Brian Kelly a tenth of the amount of everybody else. I have not been shoving that down everybody's throat. So every time I tweeted something and it was met with 4 to 5 comments from LSU fans bringing up Brian Kelly, I'm getting shellacked for fighting back. I also thought was really stupid about all this is that all the comments were, wow, I'm crying. Meanwhile, LSU fans are the ones who are getting bent out of shape over the fact of me calling out him being mentioned during a national championship game in which they're not playing it. I don't think that's unjustified for me to bring it up.
I do think it's – I'm not saying you're doing this. I think it's unjustified in this point. The real truth, if we weren't fans of either of these teams, the way that I think it's logically to look at it, there's a fan base in Notre Dame that said that they would be better without him and that they can get over the hump without him. Well, they didn't. I think that there is truth in that, right? There is truth in you saying that you're better off and then you not getting there. And look, Marcus might wind up winning a national title at Notre Dame. The future remains, okay? It can happen. They're literally a game away from it happening. But I do think that there's multiple layers of you saying you couldn't get over the hump with him, and now all of a sudden, year 3, head coach, I can listen to all the arguments about Freeman's a first-time head coach. I can listen to all of it. There is truth in, okay, you saying that you're better and that you couldn't get over the hump. Now, the other layer that I mentioned here is something that Brian Kelly, and listen, nobody gets on his ass on this show or even Irish fans when things go wrong more than this guy. Nobody. Literally go listen to last night's show. I'm telling you, it's not remotely close. Two things can be true. Number one, LSU can sustain itself with or without him. It's shown that it can. Quite frankly, it is what it is. But if he does get back to where the norm of where LSU can be, and we've seen that they have been since 2000, there is a chance that he can win it all here. Because God forbid if Ed Orgeron can do it and Les can do it, BK can too. Now, there are a lot of things that he's got to clean up and fix. Those are the different layers that I think that don't get thrown into logical arguments. So I get where LSU fans are coming from. I get where Notre Dame fans are coming from. But to wrap this one in a bow for me, you cannot say, okay, that you can't think that LSU fans weren't coming after you if you lost. Regardless, right, wrong, indifferent, they were coming after you after taking it on the chin for the last month. Because they had to take BK for a month. And then when they got their chance, they came out in droves and started throwing punches. And I told you it was going to happen.
But what is very confusing and insane to me about this, if Brian Kelly goes on to win a national championship, that's the vindication. The vindication for LSU fans, when they should attack Notre Dame fans and be like, you guys were so wrong in thinking that he wasn't going to be able to accomplish this, that you guys were better off. If Brian Kelly wins a national title before Marcus Freeman, that's the vindication. And I will put my hands up in the air and say that I'm wrong if that happens.
If he wins one first.
If he wins one before Marcus Freeman does.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with the commentary and the attitude yesterday is that a team that didn't even get to the playoff, their fans were chiming in on a Notre Dame fan who hosts a national show. Like, that's to me where I was so pissed off about this, especially, and let's call what it is. Just one sec. Let's just call what it is. I have been supportive of LSU. I, on this show, talked about how this transfer portal class that they had was tremendous. And I stood up for Patrick Payton when everybody else was saying that he was a bum. And I came on here saying that he could be a star next year. And to be treated like that by listeners of the show and other LSU fans, that is what pissed me off. In a situation where the team that I root for is playing for a national championship and you're at home, that's what doesn't make sense to me. I get the argument that you're presenting here, that LSU fans are going to put up a fight after all the shit that they took. But to do that when Notre Dame loses a national championship after they fought and kind of almost got back into it and played a strong second half, didn't play well enough to win it, absolutely. They played like crap through spurts of that game. The timing of it is just very odd to take a victory lap when you weren't even in the original conversation to win a national title.
Fair. And BK's got to own that. On the national title aspect, there does come another piece here. There does come one more piece of what happens if he gets there and what happens if he wins one.
Narrative completely changes.
No. The narrative is already – hold on. Brian Kelly is fighting off two things right now that I don't think Notre Dame fans realize. If he doesn't win one at LSU, people will say, well, everybody else did since Saban. Why couldn't you? But also, the Notre Dame fans will say, gotcha. What I don't think Notre Dame fans want to admit yet, LSU is a better place to win a national title based off of just pure past since 2000. I mean, you cannot argue that point. You cannot argue the point of them going to 4 national titles and being tied for second with Ohio State in national titles since 2000. Like, you can't.
Fair.
You can't say that it's not. So Brian Kelly is fending off both sides here that he's going to have to win it. So, and another narrative comes that, well, hey, Les Miles and Ed Orgeron won one. Why couldn't you? That will be the ultimate thing if he doesn't win one. And believe you me, y'all think y'all on his ass. Just wait till the coon asses get out and start moving. All right. We do have a $50 super chat in here, Joe. It comes from Deano Spolth. Or Spol.
Dino Spluh.
It says, First off, I love you guys and appreciate your work y'all do for college football. Joe, please respond to something you said on 7/8/24 at the 2005 mark in reference to Will Howard at Ohio State. To win a title, you need returning quarterbacks. Ouch. And first off, thank you for the $50.
Well, thank you for the super chat. To be fair, in a new era of college football, we didn't have the context yet that a first-year transfer could win a national title. But I think that now that take can be revised. I actually think this is less of a dig and more of a reevaluation of a talking point. And it's something that I'm going to bring up when we do our way too early national championship picks at the end of the show today, Blake. I think that now the new framework is you need to have a veteran quarterback. You need to have a guy that has been through it, that is an established player who's seen the bullets in important spots. Will Howard fits the description of winning a conference championship in the Big 12. He plays into the description of being on a competitive team and starting a ton of the games and then stepping into a really strong situation. That's where I think the new shift to this is, and it's going to be another wave in the world of creating success in the sport.
I don't disagree with the veteran part. I do think it's going to be interesting to see your thoughts on Arch Manning as we do a way too early 2025 national title run.
Yeah.
So, Look, if that's the case, you don't have many veteran quarterbacks in the sport right now.
Well, that's what when I was looking through these teams, that is the strangest part about all this.
Carson Beck, Lenora Sellers. I'm going to throw DJ Lagway in there because he started more than half the season. Garrett Nussmeier.
Cade Klubnik.
Drew
Aller.
Yeah, Drew Aller. I'm going to talk about him. We're going to talk about him tonight too.
Yeah.
Drew Aller. I threw Marcel Reed in there as well. I mean, there's not a lot of veteran quarterbacks necessarily. So, look, we'll see. All right. We'll come back. We'll recap the national title, Notre Dame and Ohio State. We'll give our way to early national title run or teams that we like going into. Really, it's basically teams we like going into 2025. Right. And then if we got time, we'll get to a hot seat teams and coaches that may be on the hot seat here. Joe, before we get to our good friends over at BetOnline, you want to tell them about our really good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. You can use that promo code AYS and a chance to win $1,000 in gameplay.
Well, more importantly, you get a fantastic sign-on bonus when you use our code AYS. It's just 3 letters. It is Blake's branding, AYS, super easy, not long like Ruffino and Joe. And you could get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you don't know what Underdog Fantasy is, and you maybe you don't want to dive into the world of sports betting, it is super fun and engaging and easy. The best feature that I love doing is the higher or lower game where you get a point total. It's like over-unders on player props where, you're projecting, do I think this guy is going to have at least 50 rushing yards? Do I think he's going to go less? There is no better time now that college football is done with the final 3 games of the NFL season to hop in on that and have a blast until we get to the slow doldrums of having to watch basketball. Boo. Make sure you sign up though now and enjoy as much as you can. What do you give me? Why you saying
all I'm going to say is this: is college baseball starts on February 14th.
I'm still not going to I'm going to be watching college lacrosse because Notre Dame's elite at college lacrosse. So that's where my attention
literally nobody gives 2 Rudy Poos about
Notre Dame fans do. We're back-to-back national champions, baby.
Yeah, okay. Win one in one of the big 3.
One of the big 3 what?
Baseball, football, basketball. Those are the big 3 sports in the
LSU doesn't even have a lacrosse team. I don't even.
You know why?
Lacrosse is important. Is more important in the Northeast than baseball.
You know why? Lacrosse is not more important than college baseball. You don't have the viewership. You don't have the revenue. You don't have any of it. Brother, more people.
That part I don't disagree. Yeah, I mean, that part's not wrong. But I'm just saying in the Northeast and in the Midwest, it's more important than baseball is.
I mean,
more so the Northeast.
2 Northeast teams made Omaha, 2 years ago, and there was more viewership in the Northeast than ever before.
What were the 2 Northeast teams?
I say Northeast. Compared to me, I say Virginia, but that's probably not Northeast to everybody else. And then Maryland, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago. Was it Maryland?
I would count Maryland.
Oh, no. Excuse me. It wasn't a couple years ago. It's actually been a hot minute. It was Indiana.
How long ago was that?
It might have been a few years, but maybe I'm misremembering. But Indiana did get to Omaha. College baseball is the second best sport in all of college athletics.
Sure.
Sorry, it is. Okay. Maybe look, we had this conversation literally a year ago about Texas, and they were officially back. They got into another Final Four. Here's another team that could do it: Notre Dame. Get that stink off of you. Do it again, and we'll see what I say. Stink. The perception of the.
I know what you mean.
Right. Okay. Ohio State and Notre Dame played last night for a national championship, Joe. We have recapped it once, but we're going to recap it again now that I guess better heads can prevail here. And we've been able to rewatch the game. It's been around a little bit less than 24 hours since we talked about it. But now that we've had time to go back, look at it, rewatch it, your thoughts about what happened last night in that game?
So I want to, like we did yesterday, I want to start with Ohio State, them being the victors again. They deserve the most recognition and credit for their performance. I think we kind of got lost in the yelling that we didn't spend as much time really applauding the amazing
talk about Notre Dame's side of things at all, by the way.
Right, yeah, because we were yelling too much. And that's why people love the show. I think the two biggest things that stood out to me, first of all, I want to backtrack comments I made about Will Howard. I was off base on him. I think that Will Howard's performance was the most important part for Ohio State's success. I was completely wrong when I rewatched this and I got to see, and again, with more of a level head, separate from being upset and frustrated from Notre Dame losing that game, his decision-making and execution paired with Chip Kelly's play calling, which I'm going to get to in a second, was so impactful on a snap-to-snap basis. If he was not able to make the correct read on a number of plays and to make it as efficiently as he did, I think a lot of those plays go very differently. There were instances where Notre Dame actually got some penetration. They were able to make some plays at the line of scrimmage, but the drives, especially in the first half, kept moving and progressing forward because he would adjust and the ball would get out quick and he would set up one of his receivers to make a couple of missed tackles and progress things further. That goes in line, though, with the other part about this. Chip Kelly straight up out-prepared Al Golden. I saw, and we lauded the game preparation for the Oregon game and the Tennessee game. I think that this preparation was even better. And I think that there's a lot that we can talk about this. He saw two extremely glaring weaknesses for Notre Dame that we discussed on this show, Blake. Notre Dame was banged up at their edge positions. Bubakar Traore and Jordan Botelho went down early in the season, and Penn State attacked it. Ohio State deliberately got the ball in space into the outside to Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, and it seems like there was a deliberate intention to say that if the first lane doesn't open up, cut back, and you're going to be able to find space. They also used a ton of misdirection, knowing that Notre Dame's linebacking core that's athletic but is extremely overly aggressive because they're young. They had a bunch of young guys, Drake Bowen, Kingston Viamawasa, that overly flowed. And then when there were these cutbacks, there was these misdirections, all of these things, it led to huge gains. Chip Kelly could not have called a better game. And I know that there's a little bit of frustration for how overly conservative he got in the second half, which I'm sure we're going to discuss a little bit. I thought that the way that they opened up was perfect. They couldn't have
definitely going to discuss it. I mean, it's my biggest talking point, if I'm being honest, going back and rewatching it. You talked about Chip Kelly calling a great game, but it was simple.
Yes.
It was simple.
Yes.
Joe, think about this. 13 runs that they had last night. 13 of those runs are the misdirection under center counter play. From the first play on, they kept running it. I think that I can bring this up on Notre Dame, or I can bring it up now. Sometimes as a play caller, if something's working, continue to run it. And they kept running it all night long. Quinshon Judkins had the massive 70-yard run on it, and his touchdown run came on a counter. The Jeremiah Smith touchdown to start off their scoring drives was the play action fake counter or misdirection with him going into the flat, the fake reverse, and then throwing it to him in the flat. Joe, clearly they saw something on film that the linebackers flow extremely heavy, so we're going to misdirect him. And what a counter really is you're just trapping. All you're doing as an offensive lineman is blocking down and then catching the linebacker, catching the block. It's what you do when you don't think that your O-line can get pushed on zone stuff.
In which they weren't. To that point, they were actually struggling a little bit at times to get push, and it created so much freaking space, and ND was so spread out. That's a great way of putting it.
Bingo. And then you're catching the block, and you're going for, at points and times, literally the Juckin 70-yard run. Yeah. Sometimes in play calling, it's a little too simple. What was Notre Dame's best drive? Simplicity. Slant, hitch, fade. That's of all the plays that they connected on in the second half, I wrote it down. That's what you connected on. Okay. So I look at this and say, I do think that there are parts and times that you were out game planned. And I do think that they took the pedal off the metal. But, man, I got to keep coming back to this defense. Joe, I got to be real with you, man. I mean, they're all over the place. Do I think that there were times that they could have tackled better? Sure. But, man, quite frankly, okay, both lines of scrimmage did exactly what they needed to do to win this football game, in my humble opinion. Joe, think about this. On the offensive line side of things, very quickly, you had 214 rushing yards. The Emeka Ibuka fumble run, the reverse, isn't even counted in the statistics. So you would have had 224 rushing yards. That is absolutely insane. Like with a banged-up O-line. Now, this defense, man, I just can't get enough of it. I thought that they played really well through, let's just call it 45 minutes of the game. They gave up 7 points, and then the wheels kind of fell off a little bit. I just think that they've been the best defense all year. And they've struggled offensively, but defensively, I knew that they were going to stand up. Joe, this entire season for Ohio State, we saw them make goal line stands from the 1 yard line against Penn State, against Nebraska, against, I think it was, I forget who else it was. Wasn't it Texas? Yeah, it was Texas. What am I thinking about? The Jack Sawyer strip, because if you remember, they were second and goal from the 1, and they make another big stop. It's so wild to me that we look at sports, and especially college football, as, oh, man, this, and this wins you football games. Well, no, running the football and playing really good defensively wins you championships. The monitor doesn't change. What did Georgia do really well? What did Michigan do really well? And quite frankly, even though they were beat up, Joe, they ran the football for 200-plus yards in a national title game. They ran when they needed to against Oregon. Teams that are playing really good defensively and running the football, Joe, they've won the last 4 national titles. And I could say 5 if I absolutely needed to. That is absolutely insane to me when you look and think about that. Joe, we got to go back to who's going to be the best defensively and who can run the football. I think Ohio State, of all the things that you did, all the portal additions that you had, man, playing good defensively, getting all those guys back, and then what you did last night. Joe, going back and rewatching the game, the running game, that's it. I mean, I can't come away from anything else, just how impressed I was in what they did in the running game.
So let me take this in an indirect angle, and of course this results in a shot being taken at Lane Kiffin. I think that to the way that you just described it is so clear that the path for success in this sport has the most to do with effective and almost dominant rushing attacks and just physical big bodies along the defensive line that are hard to get. In the top 15 teams in the country are able to attract defensive line talent enough that can be unlocked to be able to play at a high level if you have the right defensive coordinator. But I think that there is such a stark difference between the college game and the NFL game that is not discussed enough. I think that running backs matter way more. Way more. Having 2 to 3 really good, more specifically 2 and at least 1 premier athlete running back, having those guys with a good offensive line is way more important to me than having the elite, big-armed, just dominant quarterback because it is so hard to find a Joe Burrow. Trying to chase finding a Joe Burrow is an impossible task, and it will lead you astray. Instead, getting a Quinshon Judkins and a Jeremiah Love or a Travion Henderson, having those types of guys. Well, and Will Howard was important for that too. But I say this to say that Lane Kiffin, the rumor is he didn't feel that Quinshon Judkins was worthy of the money that he was asking for. And it feels like it comes from a very old school, or not old school, a very misguided approach that currently running back value is unimportant. I think in college football,
their biggest issue?
Exactly the point. I think that if anything, this proves that there should be a stronger and more aggressive investment in teams to spend money at the running back position.
Let's go through 5 of them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first-round draft pick, had 1,400 yards. Was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Najee Harris. God bless it. Georgia's running back that got drafted. God bless it.
Oh, man, this is going to bug the crap out of me. What year? It was 2022?
2022. Regardless, they ran the ball at a very high rate. They're one of the best rushing teams in the country. And then you go to Michigan. You have Corbin. You have Edwards. And then this year, you have arguably one of the best duo running backs that we've seen on a team in history. That is the difference. I think that when it came down to it, even though Ohio State and the Michigan loss, it propelled them, man. It 100% propelled them to where they needed to go. That is the formula of winning right now in college football, and nobody was better at it in the country than Ohio State. No one, regardless of the beat-up offensive line or not. So you got to give them a lot of credit. Look, they got a lot that they have to replace, and I'm sure they're going to talk about. In reference to the game, Joe, I want to say this, though. There is a critique that I have. Man, they could have scored 49, 50 points in that. They could have scored 7 touchdowns in that game. If they don't take their foot off the gas. I cannot get over that Will Howard is 15 of 16 going into the first half. And then you don't utilize him at all throwing the football the entire second half. It is absolutely ridiculous to me. I know that you're trying to bleed the clock, but when you bleed the clock like that and you don't convert, bad things can and almost will happen to you. I think that I get it. I know Ohio State fans are really excited about winning a national title. They should be. It's over. This point of me critiquing doesn't really even matter to some extent. But there also is a thing that, like, dude, you threw the ball 6 times in the second half, and you were carving them alive. Joe, in the first half, we saw Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka run over a DB. Like, the talent level was different there. I'm sorry. They went freshman on freshman, and you could have even just given them quick passes. At least get them touches. Like, stop running your head into a wall. It did not bite them in the ass, but, man, it could have.
I don't completely agree with this part of it. And I understand the questioning that, why.
Passes, though?
And I said this yesterday, I'm of the belief that when you're in a situation and you're up 31-7 and you're having as much success as you are running the ball, that you should be able to just lean on that and bleed down the clock. Notre Dame counter-adjusted so effectively that they were able to get the stops that they needed and get the forced fumble that they had when they needed it. I just think it's really risky at times to put the ball in the air. You were throwing the ball amazingly, perfectly. But against a team that generates turnovers the way that they do, all it took was one batted ball to give them a short field. Fumbling the way that they did, I think that it obviously gave Notre Dame the ball back, but they had to march all the way down the field, and it took a ton of time off the clock and yada, yada, yada. I'm not the biggest fan of trying to throw the ball when you're up by that much because
the argument in that, I got to stop you because the fade route that Jeremiah Smith won in the national title game, it put the last nail in Notre Dame's coffin.
Yeah, but you're supposed to just keep calling plays like that, and I don't know if it's like a guarantee
can I tell you why?
All convert.
Well, can I tell you why? The dude was 15 of 16. If he would have struggled, if he would have been a little off or just above average, Yeah, okay, I'm with you. I understand that. He wasn't above average. Joe, for what it's worth, Joe, he's 15 of 16. And then you're running him, which I don't hate. I don't hate you running him. But then on 3rd and longs, that's when you're asking him to convert. It's not fair to him. It's not as if that Will Howard wasn't absolutely snapping necks and cashing checks out there. Like, I'm with you on 31-7. I don't really have an argument to that. It's 31-15 in the 3rd quarter, and you can go put the game away. You have 2 drives to go and do it, and you can't.
Yeah, but like imagine how much of a momentum shift that would have been for Notre Dame if
it happened anyway.
But yeah, they got the fumble that they did, but like if they got a pick and they had room to return it, I understand.
You can't play.
I understand the argument. I know that, but it's not playing. It's not playing scared.
It's playing scared. It's to me. It's playing scared because you know what? If I would have lost it, I could have said that. Hey, man, the dude literally is completing 90% of his passes. So what?
But they didn't end up losing it because that they knew that they could turn to throwing those types of routes to Jeremiah Smith. If they had no success running the ball, Blake, I'd totally get this conversation. But they were picking up huge chunks of yards on certain plays. I didn't think that they got away from it so much. Again, I think it's a bit of you brought it, the bigger key here is it's a little bit of a moot point because they still were able to win. They were still able to rely on Jeremiah Smith because they knew that eventually if they needed to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith, that they just could toss him the rock and it would be important for them to convert.
I guess. Let's get to Notre Dame because we haven't.
Okay.
Last night I got one sentence in and then my head got bit off.
No.
My head got.
It was mutual. It was mutual. Come on.
I mean, it was mutual, but I literally got one sentence in. All right. Here's the thing for me about Notre Dame and the game and the recap for them. Joe, your longest run is 9 yards. Like, I know that's like doesn't sound like a big deal. It is a big deal when it came on the first drive. Joe, you averaged 2 yards a carry. That's not Notre Dame football. We talked about them going into the game having to play their style of football. They did on that first drive, and it damn near broke Riley Leonard. I mean, dude's puking on the sidelines, but he gave everything he had. I for what it's worth, I think you tried to be who you were offensively, and you did some good things in moments. But, man, not ultimately when this game is round up in the bow, and you going 5 for 12 on 3rd down. Joe, of the 12 3rd downs, you tried to run the ball 7 of them. 7. By the way, guess how many you didn't convert?
Okay. Well, we're all 7 of those that they didn't convert.
No, they had 3 of them on the first drive with Riley Leonard, but they didn't get – how about this? After the first drive with Riley Leonard, they did not get a rushing first down. They got him on 4th downs.
Okay. I agree with you on the running aspect of this. I think it's a little bit more complicated to unpack, and this goes in line with what I'm about to bring up for what stood out the most to me with Notre Dame and what cost them the game. I agree with you, though, not being able to run the ball to the extent of creating a splash play in the running game, that definitely hurt them. They needed on that 2nd or 3rd drive to generate some sort of actually, I think one of the Jajarian Price carries, maybe I'm misremembering, got called back for a hold or something along those lines, or like a false start or something.
Yes, it was a 7-yard run, that second drive when they got that holding call, right.
So that inability to at least get some sort of a splash play, like even in Penn State and Georgia, where they were bottled up running the football, they at least had a long run, a 20-something yard run somewhere in the mix. Like just a 15, 10-plus yard run that was able to just help keep them afloat and know that they were going to win along the line of scrimmage to break these guys free. This is where I have a feeling that there's a shot that you and I start yelling at each other again.
Here we go.
I really believe that this game, if you break it down to 5 specific plays, this game was a lot closer than people realize. And the final score...
I can't get there.
Okay. The final score indicates that Notre Dame was able to get back into this. There's a lot of reasons why they were able to do so. Yes, the conservatism by Chip Kelly does play into it. the lack of execution on very specific instances completely broke the game open for Ohio State and swung in their direction. The second and third offensive drives that they have completely took Notre Dame out of the game to the point where they were trailing and they had to play catch up. They had the second drive, they had a false start and then a hold that completely derailed them and put them in a third and very long situation that they were not going to convert. They're not the type of offense that's going to win in those situations. And then on the third drive, they were starting to get a little bit of momentum going. And then Mitchell Evans, the ball gets launched into him on a snap because that was mistimed. That lack of execution showed up and that completely hurt them. The thing that I think ultimately was just very frustrating from the Notre Dame fans end, and I'm not trying to make the seem that like Notre Dame was in it. They were in it the entire game. It was just these couple of things. I'm just trying to point out that if it wasn't for those two drives sputtering as poorly as they did, there was a legitimate shot that Notre Dame could have played this game a little bit closer. I know that's a huge if. I'm not trying to make excuses. But the fact that when you're going up against a team as explosive as Ohio State was, they needed to be able to continue to run down the clock and have these long drives and control the time of possession. Yes, they couldn't play from behind. They almost came back, but the minute they were placed in this position where it was multiple scores to play catch up, they were done. As excited as Notre Dame fans got, they weren't going to be able to get back into it. This thing needed to have been won in the second quarter, and they failed. They got their asses kicked in the second quarter. The second quarter lost them the game. And then there was one other last point of missed execution that I looked back at. On the drive where they attempted the field goal attempt, it was 3rd and 9.
Oh, God.
He forced the ball to Jaden Greathouse.
They should have run the ball.
I had the all-22. No, they shouldn't have.
Well, on 3rd and 9, they should have run the ball to try to get somewhere more conservative.
Right, to get to 4th and 5. But
Correct.
On this play, Jaden Greathouse completely blanketed, not open. Riley Leonard forces the ball. And I'm just looking at what should have been the designed intention. Jeremiah Love is running a flare route, and he's opening up. And everybody's just locked in on and flowing to Greathouse before the ball even comes out of his hand. I don't know if Jeremiah Love scores in that situation, but like that one was just the singular play where it was like, holy shit, this game would have been so different if Riley Leonard had saw that and was paying attention. It means nothing. I'm not making it an excuse, but I stand by my point here that this game was lost for Notre Dame in the second quarter.
All right. I'm not trying to argue with you, but then that means that Notre Dame and Indiana was a really close game then.
I don't think that is the same thing.
They came back. They're down 7. They get an onside kick. I mean,
yeah,
I don't.
But that circumstance of coming back was like super duper completely different. They like Notre Dame had their backups in the game. Notre Dame put backups into the game. Ohio State didn't do that.
I don't. You didn't have your backups in the final drive. When you're down 7, no, you didn't. Christian Gray was the one that had the touchdown put on him. Literally the drive before. Christian Gray covered Jeremiah Smith the whole time.
Wait, no. I'm talking about the Indiana game that you mentioned. Wait, are you talking about I thought you were talking about Notre Dame, Indiana. You're talking about Ohio State, Indiana. What are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about Notre Dame, Indiana.
Notre Dame was up, and it was the second half of the fourth quarter that they orchestrated. I don't think that we need to revisit that. Revisiting that is a very bad idea. We're going to go down a stupid rabbit hole.
There was at no point – I knew that the game was getting interesting. At no point did I feel like that they were going to win.
No, I don't disagree with that. As soon as that second quarter went the way that it did, I knew that the game was over.
Right. I think Ohio State got way too conservative. But here's the problem that I had going back to the running game. It's not like of the 60 plays that you had, Joe, 30 of them, I mean, it's 29. I'm just rounding up just for clarification. You still ran the ball 30 times. You didn't get Jeremiah Love or Price any touches. I know that you're down, but you were down you're down 21-7. I get it. I understand it. But you got out of who you were. Joe, they did not get touches. Arguably one of the best backs, regardless if you're handing the ball off to him or throwing him the football, is not getting touches.
Well, but my only counter to that, though, is that they led all of their successful scoring drives. Most of their successful scoring drives, except for the first one, were by the fact that they were throwing the ball.
They should have not gotten Jeremiah Love the ball more.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I think that they definitely should have. But the problem was that they needed to do it in the second quarter. That was when it needed to have happened, not in the fourth quarter.
What I said, you're down 21-7 and you completely abandoned it.
Yeah, on that third drive, yeah.
They got desperate. And quite frankly, you went into a gunfight with a knife. If this game ever got in the air, which it did, and Riley Leonard had to beat you with his arm, even though he had some amazing throws in moments. He also had some really bad ones. So, look, you're beat up. I'm not going to get in that argument with Notre Dame fans. The God's honest truth was you gave up too many explosive plays on the ground, and you did not have an answer for when they threw the football. Joe, there was no answer for that Notre Dame had them throwing the football. None. Zero. I mean, I don't want to say bully because I don't want to get canceled by Notre Dame fans.
Because they didn't really get bullied. They just got out.
You had two DBs that got run over. I don't know if you really believe that they had if hypothetically speaking, if they don't take their foot off the gas, that shit could have been really bad. It could have gotten they did not have an answer.
They didn't have an answer. I just don't like you using the word bully because it implies that like they were just getting toasted every single. Because they played tight coverage. A lot of the big receiving plays that Ohio State had were because Notre Dame was caught out of position, completely out of position.
When I think of bullied,
1 second. Sorry, my camera just disconnected. Keep going. What do you?
I mean, I can't because this is so entertaining. Like it's so entertaining in the sense of that, like you're so upset that Notre Dame lost a national title, and you just
okay.
I guess that's not how I'm thinking of bullied. The way that I'm thinking of bullied is that when there's one-on-one guys squared up and you get run over, that's what I call bullied.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the semantics of that with you.
Okay.
The other thing, though, that I just want to bring up here before we move on to the next segment, this is just reiterating something that we discussed earlier. The inability to generate pressures and to get after Will Howard absolutely, completely cooked them.
Oh, God.
I don't know what Al Golden was doing. I don't think he called a straight-up zero of a game plan. I think that they had success in certain areas. But there was one play where I was on the treadmill when I was watching the tape, and I think the people around me were looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? I like threw my arms up in the air and was like, what the fuck, basically. I didn't say that out loud, but that was my reaction. They had a three-man pressure. They dropped Tuihalamaka into a zone drop instead of sending more guys after Will Howard, and it vacated the entire open left side of the field, and he scrambled. I think this was on a key third down, and he had a super long rush because the entire left side of the field was wide open. That was something that couldn't have happened. They needed to play really good contain. They needed to continue to send pressure. The minute that they were on their heels, they should have just went all out. They should have continued to just send 6 guys. And if you get beat by sending that much, I would have been fine with that. But to sit on their heels and try to catch them was stupid. That to me, I thought was really dumb.
Speaking of Notre Dame, there is some news on them that is being reported now by.
Is it Al Golden?
It is the Al Golden. The current expectation is, per Pete Nakos, the current expectation is that Golden will become the next defensive coordinator at Cincinnati in the NFL, Cincinnati Bengals.
So that is
confirmed. Pete Nakos. The Cincinnati Bengals are bringing Notre Dame DC Al Golden in for an interview. The current expectation for Golden, per Pete Nakos, is that he will become the next defensive coordinator. I'm just saying, speaking of Al Golden, you're not.
I don't want to jump in to completely react to that, but I have a feeling that he's probably going to take that job. Okay,
let's react to it. Joey's gone. He ain't going to take the interview. His Marcus Freeman knows y'all are about to get a DC. I'm telling you. You want to make an audible and react to Al Golden potentially going to the Eagles right quick?
Let's talk about it.
Frank, we see your super chat. Frank, we're going to get to that next. So, Joe, there is some speculation out there as we just talked about, but just to bring it back up, just in case you want to, we want to clip this or anything. But Pete Nakos of On3 says the Cincinnati Bengals are bringing in Notre Dame DC Al Golden in for an interview. The current expectation is that Golden will become the next defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. Your thoughts?
Look, this was something that had been floated out there for a while, and I think Notre Dame fans stubbornly were hoping that this would not come to fruition. But Al Golden was hired off of Zach Taylor's coaching staff. Lou Anarumo was a fantastic defensive coordinator, and his time was cut short because of roster issues, yada, yada, yada. We're not here to talk the pro game. Al Golden is recognized as one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. He produced amazing results. When the NFL comes calling, you take those opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame doesn't try to be aggressive to counter this, but the NFL money and the NFL coordinator money is sometimes stupid. It is very hard to be able to match. I'd be curious to see what happens here. If I'm a Notre Dame fan, though, I'm not crazy worried because this is not like when Swarbrick was the athletic director. The money that they spent to bring in Mike Denbrock, I think, is an indication that they're going to be willing to spend the money to go after another premier defensive coordinator. I'm not totally sure off the top of my head at the current moment. I'm kind of pulling together just a quick list of options. I don't know who they're going to go to, but I would think that they're probably going to go after and go for a premier name. Maybe it's a big time up and comer, but they're going to spend the money.
In reference to Al Golden, look, when this came out last night, okay, I don't think that guys and reporters go out there and say things like this if they don't feel pretty confident about where things lean at the current moment. I mean, common sense is common sense. In reference to Al Golden, okay, look, it's difficult to, I know that there were some complaints. Even we complained about him just a minute ago about the game last night. Man, they had a really good defense. I mean, they look good. I do think that a lot of the things that he tries to do is NFL worthy. I mean, Joe, you play a lot of man coverage. You play a lot of quarters coverage. I mean, look, man, I think his style fits with what the NFL game looks for. Cincinnati needs a defense. Offensively, they were one of the better teams in the NFL. Defensively, they stunk. He's got weapons there too. You're right. The coordinator money in the NFL is ridiculous. And if he's not going to get head coaching opportunities in college football, why not? In reference to Notre Dame, Joe, I agree on one massive principle that you didn't really mention, but this is just a massive principle. I'm never really worried about when a head coach hat leans on one side of the football, where they go there, right? Meaning, I don't like when Nick Saban was let me not compare Saban. Look at Ryan Day. Look at Steve Sarkisian. Look at Kirby Smart. Like these really good coaches, offensively, defensively, they don't stink. They know what they're doing there. It's more times out of not that it's the other side of the football that they make wrong and right decisions. I do think that the worst case scenario that can happen for you is that Marcus Freeman calls plays. It's the worst thing that can happen. And
that is the worst thing. I don't want Marcus Freeman calling plays. I don't want him calling plays.
It's the worst thing that can happen.
I don't want him getting distracted because he's getting better and better. Sorry, finish what you're saying.
Well, regardless, if the outright worst thing happens, you have one of the best coordinators that's ever graced college football. So the point that I'm trying to make here is I think he's going to make another really good defensive coordinator hire. I love Denbrock. I love what he does there. I think that they'll do that here. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes.
I'm kind of looking. Here's the number one option. Friend of the show, Ryan Roberts, who covers Notre Dame. He wrote in an article that.
Why'd you air quote Ryan Roberts?
I didn't air quote. Did I mean to?
You did.
I didn't mean that wasn't intentional. I was just putting my hand in there.
Our good friend Ryan Roberts.
I didn't. That wasn't the intention. I just moved my hand. My good friend, maybe not good friend of yours. Mike Mickens, who's a secondary coach, is somebody that he cited as a potential option for the direction that Notre Dame goes in, which actually is a tremendous move for them. If there is an internal decision, and I know that they're probably going to do an external search, but to go after Mickens and to bring him, or not to bring him, but to promote him, knowing how good Notre Dame's secondary was this year and was the contingency of their success and the elevation of the young guys and how quickly they were able to contribute, I think that Mickens is an amazing option. But the rest of this, I'm looking at, like, here are the top scoring defenses this year. Ohio State, Jim Knowles isn't leaving. Ole Miss, Pete Golding's not leaving.
No.
Texas is DC. I'm blanking on his name. He's not leaving. Indiana's defensive coordinator. It was his first year. I think that would be risky to hire a guy that was in his first premier year at a team with a pretty weak schedule. Tennessee's probably not losing their DC. Penn State was number 8, and they just lost theirs.
Freeman knows.
Wait, Denbrock wasn't per se.
Yeah, they were in Cincinnati together. They played. They coached. Their coordinators for Luke Fickell at Cincinnati that year. They got to the playoff.
You know who's number 14 in scoring defense?
Who?
NIU. Wait 1 second. I'm not pitching this, Notre Dame fans. Please don't kill me for this. I mean, that'd be kind of based as shit.
No, basically what you're saying is that Marcus Freeman literally could do the funniest shit ever.
I think that I don't know much about this defensive coordinator, which is why I'm not pitching this, but for the hilarity of the circumstance, yeah, I think it would be funny if they promoted him. I don't know who their DC is, though. God. I don't know if they have a pure. They might actually be without a defensive coordinator right now.
That would be crazy if they do it by collective.
No, he might have gotten hired away or something.
I see. That is interesting. All right. Before we wrap up here, do you want to get to way too early top 25, or are we kind of out of time here? Because we do have a $100 super chat we got to get.
Let's get to the super chats. We'll do that on Sunday. Is going to be a fun show looking ahead.
Okay, we'll do that. So we'll get to way too top 25 soon. JP with a $2 super chat says Love was hurt. He's their best running back. I thought he wasn't hurt.
Yeah, JP, come on, man. He played through an injury and he was fine and he contributed. Yeah, I don't want to take that angle. I think that is. I don't think that's right. I think that he was able to contribute. He was definitely banged up. A lot of guys were banged up
4 times.
Yeah, I'm not in on that one. I'm sorry. I can't get behind that.
Frank Castle with another $100 super chat. Thank you, Frank Castle. This is the second night back to back. You know, Frank, you can come in here every single show and do that. We will not complain.
Thank you.
I definitely would say that, but thank you so much, Frank. He says, Joe, you're right. You and Blake are the only people in the world who can break down film. My inability to do that isn't why I paid my house off over a few years from a successful in gambling on football. Buy yourselves some cups. I still love you both, though.
Thank you, Frank. Of course, I have no idea to prove if this is real or not. I was pissed off yesterday, obviously, then I took the shot back at you. But I think it's a little bit fair for me to, I forget what his comment was yesterday. I completely forgot. I was so mad about everything else that I completely forgot what he had said to us.
I don't remember what Frank said either. I think it was, Brian Kelly was right, I think was his main point.
Let's see if I can find it.
I don't remember. But to Frank, I'll acknowledge it.
It was him saying that don't let Notre Dame fans convince you that they ever had a chance. I'm not beating Notre Dame while they're down. NIU football has already done that. While I saw the playoffs when I hit the film was that Notre Dame doesn't have the athletes. Okay, so that was where I was disenfranchised with the comment because I don't agree with that. Yeah, probably didn't need to take the extra dig of saying that you're watching the broadcast angle because to be fair, most people are watching the broadcast angle. I don't know what your background is, but I don't agree with that. Notre Dame did have athletes. Most of them were on the defensive side of the ball. The problem was, and the reason why they weren't able to convert in areas, is they didn't have enough athletes at receiver. That has been Notre Dame's biggest downfall, and that continuously needs to be something that needs to be addressed.
So are you going to get mad at me when I say next year that I don't know if – Greathouse, yeah, you can't ignore Greathouse, but outside of him, where are you going? Is Faison coming back?
Well, Faison will be back and he'll be fully healthy, hopefully. And then the 2 additions they have, that's where the hope is that they got a couple of young guys that were highly recruited, like Cam Williams.
It will be interesting to see what Denbrock listen, I love Mike. Mike needs a guy that can run a little bit. Mike's offense will not be complete until somebody can throw the pill around better than Riley Leonard. I'm sorry. It won't. You got to have somebody that can throw that inside fade route with conviction. You do not have. Joe, think about this. I know this for an outright fact. Inside fade a year ago. You want to know how many times he called it passing plays percentage-wise? 30%. I know he had Jaden and Malik too, by the way. Sorry, but I know that's a little bit different. But come on. That's a lot.
Okay. The thing that I just want to add into that, I think Notre Dame has a lot more talent at quarterback than people realize.
Do you think it's Angeli or do you think it's Carr?
I actually think that Kenny Minchie is going to be in play more than people realize. I think that it is too much of a foregone. Like, I think that, and people have, I've had conversations with other Notre Dame people that cover Notre Dame about this. Angeli is more of a backup type. He did some nice things. I don't think he's going to be the starter. Inevitably, it's probably going to be Minchie or Carr. And Minchie is a very gifted and underrated player, and he has shown a couple of nice flashes when he stepped in. He is the type of athlete that you're talking about that's got the arm that Denbrock needs more than Angeli. Angeli's more like Nussmeier. Minchie can be a little bit more of an athlete. Sure. He's not jaded. I'm not saying that, but I think he's a little bit more athletic. I don't know. We'll see, though. That's going to be the big talking point.
I mean, if we're being honest, that 22 defense that everybody talks about for Georgia, Nuss went off in there and tossed that pill around now.
It's a fair point.
I don't know. I know Mike wants to run the football, but shit. All right. So we will see y'all again on Sunday. We will not be live tomorrow. Normally we're live on Monday, Wednesday, or Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays. We went ahead and went on Tuesday. So we'll not see you tomorrow. We will see you on Sunday. So Joe, until then, I won't see you until then. It's been a great season. Joe did put this out earlier today, and I just want to tell everybody thank you. Man, all of you have absolutely just blown this show up. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. 2.25 million views, averaging 400,000 views per month. 83% increase from 2023. Around 6,000 new subscribers. 60% up from 2023. We launched our TikTok that's gone viral in some spots.
Yeah,
multiple times. So congratulations to you, good sir. Thank you for all the fans out there that listen to the show. And if you haven't done so already, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. But I know I'm breaking up really bad. I think the snow's getting bad over here.
No, you're good. But just to echo that, it's been an amazing season, and we love and appreciate all of our listeners. As much as sometimes we yell back at you and you guys like to yell at us, we know that it's the vibe. That's why people come back every single time. And it's been a great season. I know that this is going to continue to grow more and more.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all Sunday. Peace.